Hello, and welcome to the W.A.I.T channel. What Am I Thinking? A podcast where two sisters share uplifting conversations on fun and sometimes serious topics.
Join us each week by clicking the notification bell and subscribing to our channel. If you enjoy the show, use the share link. It's one of the best ways to expand the conversation.
Hello and welcome back to the W.A.I.T channel. What am I thinking? We took a little break in between our recording. I'm not sure if many people are aware, but there were traumatic events, storms that ripped through the middle of the country, and we kind of were in that mix, the losing power and all of that traumatic stuff. But we're back. And what we are going to talk about today is Summer House, Season 7. And we're going to start off kind of looking at a friendship that we watched develop over the season. Danielle and Lindsay Hubbard. So we can't really talk about that relationship without kind of going back to the beginning of what we saw as fans of the Summer House series and dissect it a little bit from our perspective of how we have watched the evolution of this relationship. So you want to give a quick synopsis, Tracy?
Sure. So, in looking at the friendship of Lindsay and Danielle, one of the key things to remember is that Danielle is actually an ex of Carl's, because Carl and Danielle dated before Lindsay and Carl ever thought about dating. And Danielle and Carl have messed around on and off. So the friendship of Lindsay and Danielle survived Lindsay and Carl having a relationship, and Danielle and Carl hooking up, and all of that stuff that has happened, and them being a good sort of trio of friends. And Danielle has always been a pretty ride or die for Lindsay. And if you look at it, really hasn't had to be there for Danielle in that way. So we really don't know how she would have shown up for her, because it really has not been required until now. So I believe that Danielle is someone that would be happy and was happy when Lindsay was in healthy relationships, has been there for her when she's been trying to get out of unhealthy ones. And I think she could see her and Carl being a good fit, but I understand her concern about the timeline or how fast it's going. Even though there is a history of friendship, there's also a history of unhealthy relationships between the two of them. So if you want to pick it up, Lori, for where they are now in this Summer House Season 7.
Well, in talking about their relationship, one of the things that always stood out to me is that Lindsay is, for me, that person that just sucks the oxygen out of the room. And any and all situations, it has to in some way revolve around her. So we see the girls going out for, I guess you could say it was a girls' meal, a time for just the girls to go out together. And during this dinner that they were having, the conversations are occurring about friendships and being there for each other. And we see that Danielle is feeling a certain way about the fact the previous weekend when they went to Montauk that Lindsay did not go. And there were side conversations about once upon a time Lindsay would be the first to say, yes, let's go. But now that she's in this relationship, she doesn't want to go. And then at the table, she even says that she did not feel that there was a reason to go if Carl couldn't come with her, which made Danielle feel a certain way. Like, I'm going. Aren't we supposed to be friends? You could have gone with me. And when the women go home, Lindsay and Carl, they go to their room and they're in their little bubble watching something on his laptop, while the girls, it was Sierra, Paige, and Amanda, and Danielle joins them in the room. And it is then that Paige is telling her that they loved seeing her stand up for herself and not be in Lindsay's shadow. And I'm not even sure, do you think, Tracy, that she picked up on that that's what their perception of her has been all these years, that she's in the background and she lets Lindsay come to the forefront?
I think that Danielle is seeing a lot of things through a new lens now. And so in that moment, it even fully registered to her in that moment what they were saying. But I do believe she has had that aha moment of her being the background singer and Lindsay being the lead.
Yeah. And you said something that is key, because I could tell by not only her behavior but the other girls that they had been drinking. So right. I'm quite sure many of the little nuggets that were kind of being tossed at her that night, she probably didn't really pick up on all of them, but it was enough for her to acknowledge that she did want to say these things and she has felt a certain way. And it was funny when he told Paige that, here we go, again, Paige is right. And to me, what that said is that she's acknowledging all those things that Paige has said in the past, and that right. What Paige is saying, was saying in that moment, that these were true things. Now, the one thing I really wish would have been said while she was in that room is how all the girls acknowledged that the one element that generally is a part of all the drama, all the trouble, is Lindsay.
Yeah.
I would have loved for Danielle to be in the room to hear that.
Yeah. But I don't know if in that moment she would have been ready to take that in too. Because I think it's one of those things that as things are being revealed, sort of just kind of having to kind of take a breath, because it's a lot to admit that somebody that you felt was a certain way or a certain person in your life, and to kind of see them the way everybody else had seen them all along. That takes a lot. And some of the things that I think that has Danielle taken aback is Lindsay was not just dismissive of their friendship in that moment by saying, what reason did I have to go because I'm in a relationship? She was also being dismissive of Danielle's relationship.
Very
the
much.
fact that she was going to go out. So two women who are both in relationships go out together and still come back and be in healthy relationships, And I think that was Danielle's thing. It's like, you don't have to be tied at the hip to your partner. And Lindsay's thing was, well, that's not what you do, but that's what we're choosing to do.
I just want to interject this one thing, because I find that so ironic that, okay, so you have this close relationship and clearly and by you, I'm speaking about Lindsay, you're so self-absorbed that you don't even realize your good friend is struggling in her relationship, and that she doesn't even feel that there is a pause in whatever is going on with you two, that she can now interject what's going on between her and Robert. It's these little subtle. Danielle is a very independent person. That much about her personality is clear. But there are little subtle things that she says in her confessionals that kind of opens up a window to that relationship, to see that there's a part of her that knows this isn't going to work.
Right.
And the fact that Lindsay is not aware of that, or is not sympathetic to that her friend, it means that she wasn't even tuned into Danielle in that way.
Yeah. That's a big deal. And so, they go off from that incident, and they go an entire week, apparently, without even speaking, let alone not speaking about what happened, but they don't even talk. And they both acknowledge that's something that had never happened in their friendship before.
I mean, especially, you're filming a show and you want to keep your alliances. And I just found it so funny that Danielle, who you would think is the more logical person to be your ally, instead she's going to the newbies.
Right.
Because they're just going to... Go ahead.
But she feels she doesn't need Danielle because she has Carl.
Yeah.
She has Carl. So, whereas before, if she didn't have Danielle, she would be on an island by herself. But her other person, who seemingly putting on blinders and Lindsay can do no wrong in his eyes, who's not in the house full time but shows up, is that Luke.
Yeah.
And he just drinks all her Kool-Aid.
But that's always been the case with Luke.
It just is so irritating because, it's a little irritating.
I mean, that's always been Luke, which I'm still convinced that something did happen between them. And I think that they have just agreed that would be something that would never be acknowledged on air.
Keep each other sick. Because knowing Lindsay the way we have known her,
yeah,
would be surprising. And it wouldn't be, she wasn't friends with Sierra. She didn't really care for Hannah. So why would Luke be off limits to her?
Right. I mean, she's already...
guy.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So there is nothing that would have stopped them from hooking up.
Right.
Because she was not friends with the other people he was involved with. And even when she has been seemingly trying to be friends with those, it still didn't stop her. So I don't see a reason as to, why that would not, and why it would have been so taboo if it did happen.
Right.
It would have been from Hannah's perspective, but that you and Lindsay weren't cool like that, so it really would it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. But at some point during Kyle's 40th birthday thing. Oh, but wait a minute, I gotta say this. So Jason is her kryptonite now. What was that about? For Lindsay.
And the thing about that is, it is just so Karen of her, so Karen-ish of her to...
Oh my gosh, yes, Maury.
I mean, honestly, it's like the thing that she doesn't acknowledge. Okay, we get it. You had a loss. And yes, no one is minimizing what that was like. But he had a loss too. And you can't make your loss any greater or his any less Each person gets to be and feel with that loss however they want. So for you to look at him, and I mean, I wasn't even sure, was it that, what was it? Like you say, why, what was it about seeing him that you got Danielle running after you, you're running up the stairs? What's wrong? What's wrong? You know, are you going to be okay? And then you're pulling Carl. You just need to tell him to stay away from me, to not talk to me. I'm like, girl, you doing too much.
Too much. Like, I mean, Carl, after being so like, yeah, I'll handle it, he goes off and he doesn't kind of have the exchange with Jason in the way that I think Lindsay really wanted him to have, because it wasn't really required. So that's why he dialed it back.
Right.
You know, by the time he got from the room to Jason, it was more reasonable. But even that, it's like, you know, her not wanting to have the moments with Jason is about her not truly wanting to acknowledge that the way she handled things was wrong. And if things had been turned around and he had shared it without giving her a warning, he would have been dead.
But you know, she is
no coming back from that.
Lindsay is the girl that thinks every guy in the room wants her, and that this is a guy that she's moved on, but he can't possibly have moved on beyond her. That's what's in her head. It reminds me of an episode, Sex in the City, when Miranda had been dating the sports doctor and they broke up, and they were passing, her and Steve were passing him in the halls, and she just thought that, you know, his heart was just going to be broken. And this guy had moved on. And it was like when she did that, I just had this flashback of a television program. And I'm like, girl, he has moved on. Why don't you?
Yeah. Very telling. Very telling. So at some point, they do have a sit down. And Danielle breaks down, you know, because there are different dynamics within friendships where each person plays a different role. Friendships are not always 50-50. There are times where it's one person is always caring, needing, wanting, and the other person is okay with being there listening. Sometimes there is a desire or want for that other person in the friendship to sometimes say, hey, how you doing? You need anything? You're okay? But there's an expectation that that's not the friendship. And I really can kind of handle it. It would be nice if the person checked on me, but I'm okay. I don't need it in the same way that they do. And I want to believe if I really, 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 really did need them, that they would find a way to show up. That's the hope that you hold out, but it's not the reality of the friendship. And that's the space Danielle was in until she does now need her. She does need her to acknowledge that she hasn't been showing up as a friend to her in the same way since she's been in a relationship. It's not that she's never been in relationships before, but this one she's moving differently. And it probably is because she wants it to work. So I'm not going to get into the whole thing, how you can't send your representative into the relationship. You got to be you the whole time. Well, I'm not going to go there, but that's kind of what she's doing. She's kind of remaking herself to be who Carl needs her to be and show up in that way. But at the same time, it's being dismissive of her other friends that have been in her life. And I don't know if that's anybody outside of Danielle, but definitely that's how Danielle is feeling. And it's hurtful to her.
When I think about, it was something Amanda said about Kyle, about when he turned 40 and how she had just accepted that he's always going to be this kid. And I remember early in their relationship, that was that part of him she wanted to change. But she came to realize that she either had to accept him for who he is or move on. And she has gotten to that place. So that's what the young girls have been saying about Lindsay is, like you said, her representative is in this relationship. It is not her. And I'm not even sure if we are seeing the real Carl, because since the show has been on, it's only been one season that we saw a sober Carl. So we're seeing the Carl, I think, that is trying to be the best version of himself. But even with that, he's in a testing phase. This is something that's all brand new for him, being that better and best version of himself. So it's like you've got two people with representatives there, and I know time will tell, but like you said, we're not talking about them. We're talking about Danielle, and we're talking about Lindsay, and I know that I think it's this next episode where we're going to get more from maybe Danielle having an aha moment.
Right. It'll be interesting. I am anticipating what the next part of this conference, because we already know it obviously doesn't go great. Because they're not in a good space now. I mean, they could be if they got together yesterday or last week. But it's our understanding that the fracture happens while they're in summer house. So, we leave the part. What I'm remembering is Lindsay trying to be there, comforting Danielle, which even seeing that was awkward for me to watch. Because
it was insincere.
That's not her natural. I mean, I try to think of when have I ever seen her be that way for someone. I can't even think of it.
Not at all.
Yeah,
not
I
at
can't
all.
think of a time. It's either she's activated, she is inebriated, or she is lovesick.
Yeah.
Those are the three Lindsays that I know. So this Lindsay, I'm not that familiar with, so it was a little hard to watch. And it'll be interesting to see the next aspects of how they get to where they end up at the end of Summer House. So that's all I have to share on the dynamics of Lindsay and Danielle's friendship up to this point in Summer House Season 7. But I am anxiously awaiting what happens next.
So let us know your feelings, what you're thinking in the comment section. Do you think this is a good friendship? Do you think it's something that maybe in the future they should work towards salvaging? We're interested in what you are thinking. And until next time, as we continue to watch Summer House, you do the same. And we will talk to you about so many other things in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining us, and bye-bye.